Good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to be able to share this research with you, and I'm also very grateful to Walden University for providing this opportunity. I am currently serving as the chair in the special education department at Minot State University in North Dakota. I'm an alumni of Walden at the College of Education and received my doctorate of education there in 2013. My background is I'm a teacher of students who are deaf or hard of hearing. And for about 10 years of that career, which is now getting close to 30 years, I wince a little bit every time I say that number, but about 10 years of that time was spent doing early intervention and seeing infants and toddlers who had hearing loss. And that's really the realm of practice where this grant topic comes from. So we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to provide an overview here of what the project was about, and then, as Bill said, allow some time for questions. If in my efforts to cover everything, if I'm speaking too quickly, please do let me know. One of my deaf students one time said, "Miss Holly, you're talking faster than my ears can listen." And so I'm mindful that sometimes I get going a bit too quickly, but I'm very excited about this topic and about this research study. So during my time in early intervention, I became aware of this topic and a need for research, which really has to do with fathers of children who are deaf and hard of hearing. The project was called 3D Connections, and the 3Ds that we were targeting, or how we came up with that name, was DADS, deaf, hard of hearing, and Dakota for our region. But in the realm of early intervention, of course, it's considered best practice to be family-centered, and indeed we want family involvement in education in general, but for those early years, it's really vital that it's family-centered, and our goal is to educate and empower the family to really drive the direction and the goals that they want for their family, including that child with a disability, and in this case, hearing loss. And so when I was working with families, and I did slip in some pictures here, and I do have permission to talk about these children, it actually came up with a father who did indicate, you know, I feel like a third wheel on a date in this equation. I don't know what my role is. I feel excluded, and I'm not really sure where I fit. And that led me to start doing some research over the past several years. Specifically for this project, the problem that we were trying to address is that in today's families, we've certainly moved from that very universal and traditional role where dad was the breadwinner and the mother stayed at home and raised the children. That is not the case anymore, and many fathers are taking on those active and direct caregiving roles. However, when you look at the support services that are available, whether it's social support, educational support, what have you, for families of children with disabilities, almost everything is still heavily geared towards mothers. And when we come to fathers of children with disabilities, that's true. And when we come to fathers of children who have hearing loss, it's almost non-existent. We do not have research that talks about this group. And so for me as a professional, when I wanted to address this father's concern, there wasn't any research available to guide me on how to appropriately include fathers. And so that's a big problem, obviously, if you're trying to be family-centered. But we do have a lot of research that tells us that a father role in a family really positively impacts child development. So it's even more critical that we are making sure that all members of that family are included. So the current project that was supported by this grant set about to create a social and educational support framework specifically geared to the needs of fathers of children who are deaf or hard of hearing, and evaluate that in terms of whether or not it had an impact on their feelings of empowerment in order to parent their deaf and hard of hearing children. Could I see the next slide, please? Thank you. So how we went about doing that in order to answer that research question. We did, I'm jumping to the third point, but we did use the practice of an experienced father. One thing that was clear from literature that had been done with dads in general, not necessarily dads who had children with disabilities, but there was quite a lot of feedback that dads wanted to have a say in what these activities or social networks looked like for them. In other words, they didn't want professionals just dreaming something up and then saying, here, you should participate in these activities. So the project supported an experienced father of a child who's deaf or hard of hearing to participate and guide me in designing the project. So we did participate, recruit participants from the state. We did this through existing networks or gatekeepers, so to speak, in terms of early intervention services, school districts. North Dakota is a sparsely populated state, so we were able to get the word out in those small networks. We ended up having, the goal of the project was to have 10 fathers. We ended up having 9, and so I felt pretty good about that. There were a variety of challenges in my timeline, getting the dads to commit to this, but we were able to do it. The data collection piece on measuring what impact this would have was mixed methods. And so there was a quantitative piece with a pre and a post survey using the family empowerment scale. And then there was qualitative data also being gathered through one of our activities, which is a closed Facebook group, so a social media platform. We also used a needs and input survey, again, to put the ball back in the dad's court, so to speak, of what types of activities do you want? And so we designed a needs survey. It was anonymous and electronic, where dads could rate types of activities, areas of perhaps educational topics that they were interested in, those sorts of things. So in addition to the Facebook group, we have been holding monthly meetups, and these take a variety of different forms. North Dakota is quite rural, and we have dads spanning actually the whole state. So sometimes it's a virtual type of a meeting where we might have a speaker or a chat, and some people are live here on my campus. 3 minutes, okay, and sometimes people are face-to-face. Next slide, please. So the good stuff, preliminary results. This project is ongoing. One of the big challenges, and I was initially a little bit discouraged, that the dads were pretty slow moving compared to moms in terms of, you know, getting out there and really chatting it up in the Facebook page and those sorts of things. Finally, in October, near the end of October, it was very nearly November, they had formed enough of a relationship and comfort with each other that we started to see some of this post. And that's where the qualitative data is going to come from. So there's a ton of it. And in our short time, I thought the best way to convey this perhaps was pictures. The first picture, you see a dad and his daughter. They recently moved here from the Philippines. Their daughter is 12 and has no language whatsoever. None spoken, none signed. It's the first time she's ever been in school. And the dad made this post and shared about how even though they don't have language communication yet, they still have their relationship. And this was his Christmas post. On the right, we have a post from a dad, a little peanut here with some complex medical needs, but he posted this picture at the YMCA of his daughter riding a bike, but with a post that really described how this was so significant that now at 5, she was finally able physically to get on a bike, and how that was something that he had looked at. Finally, the middle picture is my experienced parent. He posted this at Christmas time. His daughter that he's holding there is now 15 years old, and I was the one who took this picture. And I did not know this until he posted this right at Christmas time. This was a picture of his daughter first getting her hearing aids. And the link below, which we will not have time to look at today, called The Gift of Song, that he posted to all of these other dads, was actually a devotional that he wrote. He sings in the choir at his church, and he was asked to give a devotional Christmas Eve. And this gift of song is a page-long reflection of this day 15 years ago, and how excited he was that his daughter would now be able to hear him singing and be able to share his gift with her. This dad is a football coach and about as stereotypically masculine as one might be able to imagine, and yet he had kept this memory for 15 years and now had a way to explore it. So I'm thrilled to start digging into this qualitative data and making sense of that. And so finally, if I could see the next slide, please, we'll be continuing with this project to employ that post survey with the family empowerment scale in a few months after the dads have had some more time to interact with each other. We have a couple of monthly meetups still scheduled. Kyle Schultz, if you're into American Ninja Warrior, Kyle Schultz won that a couple of years ago, and he happens to be deaf, and he will be coming to North Dakota to do a session open to the public, but also with the deaf families. And they'll have a chance to interact with him. This opportunity has led to several other opportunities, which again, I'm very excited about. A publication regarding fathers of children, which was featured in May in the Journal of Early Hearing Detection and Intervention. I was contacted actually just right before Christmas by the National Dual Sensory Project and the Helen Keller Institute if I would share with their national group about what we're doing here in North Dakota to better include fathers in that family-centered equation. And so really excited to be able to share our views and hopefully positively impact some families outside. So thank you very much.